Unfortunately, it's now the end of the big carp qualifier season, and it's time now for some silverfish fishing. So I'll be doing this from pretty much the next few weeks until probably March time, and the qualifiers for the summer start again. So I thought I'd show you probably the two most used and the most common rigs that I'm going to be using. It's going to be on my top kits pretty much all winter, and I thought I'd show you all about them now, and later in a separate video I'll show you how to tie them up. So starting at the actual end of the actual rigs themselves, I'll just run you through the different elastics I use. Just move my top kits over. So here, as you can see, like, I've just got original solid slips. These two are going to be my most popular and most used choices. So this one here is a 5 slip, and I use this more for shallow commercials, rigs where I'm fishing a top kit deep, mainly for my roach fishing, like short on casters, short on maggots, pinkies, that kind of thing. It's a really light elastic, and you're not going to like bump any, and you can swing in some roach on that. It's a really lovely elastic, and I actually just have them to a little plastic connector. I find it's a lot neater on these match style top kits, and it's just a little bit lighter than Dacron connectors for my really light solid elastic. So that'll probably be the lightest one I use in a 5 slip. Then moving on to like more my skimmer rigs, my most used elastic, to be honest, is probably going to be a 6 slip. I just use the smallest little Dacron connector that Preston do on them. It's just a little bit of a thicker top kit for these ones, so that just sits really nice on the end of that. And then I also sometimes use an 8 Dura if I'm fishing for bigger fish at like bigger bream at Larford or the Glebe, for instance, or places where it's a little bit deeper. So they're my 3 main elastic choices that I'm going to be using on all my rigs. So I'll just put this one down for now, and I'll show you through my main skimmer deck rig to start with. Now, this can be used literally anywhere in any depth of float, but at the minute I've just got a gram float on. But running through the actual main lines I use, so this is actually 011. This is probably my most popular choice. It's a really durable line. It's a power line, Preston power line. It's never ever going to get broken. It just sits nice if you have any tow or wind where it's blowing this bit of line up from the float. It can make a bit bad presentation, like your float can be drifting and dragged along sometimes by using too thick a main line, and using a thinner main line, your rig just sits a little bit better, presentation's a little bit better. So 011 power line on most of my rigs, but unless I'm fishing over a top kit deep, if I'm fishing a top kit and 1 or top kit and 2 deep, I sometimes go to 013 power line, but they're my main 2 choices for all of my rigs. So running down to my like deck rig for skimmers, the actual float itself, like this is just a Carper Gloucester, and I absolutely love this float because it's got a wire stem, really stable in any wind, any movement. It's going to sit there still, because obviously for me, skimmer fishing, I like having a little bit of line on the bottom, so it's a nice still bait, and skimmers pick that up much better than if you have a rig with not enough line on the bottom. So it's really, really important that you use a wire stem float, get it nice and stable so you can put some line on the bottom if there's any tow or any wind. So that's really, really important. And then it's actually just got quite a thin fiberglass bristle, really nice and visible, and it reads any bites really, really good. More than a hollow bristle, where sometimes bites don't show up enough on a hollow bristle. A fiberglass bristle means you just see a few more bites than you would do with a hollow bristle. So that's really, really good. And sometimes, just an extra little tip for you, light conditions in the winter can be really, really bad. So I actually just use some red float paint or some yellow or some black, whatever colour tip you're going to use, to be honest. But just give it a little coat of paint, and it just means the tips show up a little bit more visible than if you just get them straight out of the box. So that's the actual floats themselves. This is just a gram version, but I normally use these from 0.5 to about 2 grams, depending on the depth. But most places, 0.5, 0.75 to a gram. They're the main 3 floats for my skimmer fishing. So one other really important thing that anglers forget about is the actual silicone they're going to use. So this is the 0.3 Guru silicone. It's a really nice fine flush silicone, so it's really important in winter to dot your floats right down, because these skimmers they don't give you positive bites. And if you use too thick a silicone, it doesn't allow you to do that very accurately. It just means a float sometimes sticks up or sits a little bit low, and it's just not accurate enough for winter style of fishing. So nice thin, this is 0.3 Guru silicone, really, really important, means your presentation is going to be a lot better and you're going to catch more fish because of it. So running down the actual rig itself, so this is what I call, if I can get it still, this is just called a tapered rig. So this is just a taper of shot, so a bulk of shot, sorry, and then a taper of 7 shots below, and it just means it sits nice in any toe, so it gets the bait down with the bulk, and then with this line it just creates a little bit of an arc when it's actually in the water, and it just means if the float's moving through the swim at any point, it just means that it's all nice and tight and in a straight line, and presentation's a lot better than that, than just a bulk and 3 droppers, because there's that many weights down the line. You just see your bites a little bit better like that, and it just means that sometimes on these clear venues, when you actually put your rig through, it gives the fish a little bit of time to see your bait, and it's just a little bit better than, I think, than a bulk and 2 or a bulk and 3 droppers. So this is what I choose to use. And these shots themselves are actually balabini shots. They're quite a hard shot, because for me personally, once they're in position on these kind of rigs, I don't like to move them around. So I just use balabini shots. They're really accurate shots. They can get nice and lined up. If you see my bulk there, this is actually like a bulk of number 10s on a gram float, and you can see I've probably got 12 to 15 shot there in a row, and that just sits a little bit straighter in the water than like 5 or 6 shot. So your presentation's a lot straighter to your hook bait. If you just use like 4 or 5 shot, like bigger shot as your bulk, your rig sits at a funny angle, whereas if you have a few, it just sits a little bit straight and it's a little bit neater, I think. And obviously you can see these balabini shot here, they're all lined up by the actual cut when I put them on the rig mate, and it just means it's all nice and straight. So the bulk of number 10s, this has actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots below, and these are actually just number 10s running down to 3 number 11s as well, because nice fine shots at the end, so it the fish don't feel it when they pick it up. That's really important on these rigs. You don't want to feel any big shots, because then sometimes you can miss bites like that. So these are like 3 number 11s, 3 number 10s, and then a bulk of number 10s actually as my bulk. But as you can see above my bulk here, I've actually got 2 fine-tuning number 13 stots. So when I actually put my rig in a float tube to shot him up, I get him to full bristle, and then I just dot the bristle down to about halfway with these number 13s, and I find that when you actually put it in the actual lake, it seems to dot down even more. So you're just getting a little pimple showing above the water, and that's really important because skimmers give the most delicate bites. So that's the actual shotty. And then for my deck rig for skimmers, I'm actually changing to use 8-inch long hook lengths now. It just means it's got a little bit more line to play with. So if you're putting line on the bottom for skimmers, which is really important because they love a still static bait, it just gives you a little bit more to play with. So I can put 2-3 inches on the bottom, and I've still got a little bit more to play with. So on those windy days where the lake's towing a lot, I can put the whole hook length on the bottom, and I just find that's a little bit easier. So nice little trick for you. And this is actually just 010 Dren and fluorocarbon. Dren and fluorocarbon, it's just a little bit straighter, and apparently it's invisible in water, but I think it's just a little bit more supple to the fish. So when they suck the hook bait, I think it just goes in the mouth a little bit better. They don't feel it as much, and I think it just sits a little bit straighter on the bottom too. So really nice hook length material that is, and it's just the 010, or sometimes I use 09 like I show you on the other rig. And this is just running down to the main hooks I use all winter, and these are the F1 pellet hooks, and they're just a fantastic hook, mainly 16s and 18s, and then if it gets really hard, the Guru maggots in an 18 and 20 is what I choose to use. So that's my deck rig for skimmers. Moving on to another rig for more roach fishing short when you're fishing maggots or casters, and this one here I've already spoke about. The elastic, this is just the 5 slip. It's nice light, you're not going to bump any roach off on that, just to a little plastic connector because it sits nice on my top kits. Just 011 main line, power line, and this is just a Chianti float. This is one of the newer ones, and I actually do like these now. I used to use just the old ones, but these new ones, they take just a couple more shot, a little bit more weight on them, and I actually like that. It just means my floats sit a little bit nicer in the water, I think. But just got a nice carbon stem float, because my shots, as you'll see, they're strung out. It's going to follow my shots through the water nice. And it's just got a cane bristle, really sensitive bristle, which I can dot down perfectly. And I only use these for short, because then when I fish long, I can't really see them. So I only use these for short, and then long I use the fiberglass bristle floats. But these are really nice floats. You can dot down really nice, follow the shot through the water. So moving down, I've just got strung out number 10s. This is a 4x12 float, but I actually use these floats from 4x10 to 4x16. So depending on the float is what size shot I use. But these are just number 10. These are actually Preston shots. The Preston shots move a bit easier than the Balabini shots. The Balabinis, they're hard, they stay on the line, perfect for bulks on those skimmer rigs, but these ones, where I might move them around a little, I might want to string them out a little bit more, I might want to push them down a little bit more, depending on how the roach feeding, or shallow my rig up sometimes, fishing shallow for roach can be good. So these Preston shots, they just move a little bit easier, and I've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 number 10s on. A little bit more than the old shots, the old floats used to take, the purple chanties, but I just like these, having these extra shot down the line. So I've just got my shots just getting slightly further apart as I go down the rig here. Slightly further apart, and then I've just got on the roach rigs here, because I want to see the bites a little bit faster than the skimmers, because roach can be a little bit more crafty. This is just a 6-inch hook length of 0.9 of the Drennan fluorocarbon down to an 18 F1 pellet hook, which I'll use now until it gets really, really cold, and then I might change to the F1 maggot hooks. So yeah, those are my 2 rigs. I hope it's given you a little insight into the rigs I might be using this winter. And yeah, hopefully you can use them to your advantage this winter.